Hello and welcome to The Resource, the podcast propelling employer brands to recruit smarter and retain better. I'm your host, Priscilla Peters.
I'm your other host, Scott Dismute. Priscilla, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Listen, we're having quite the October over here at Conversion Interactive Agency. We launched opened registration for the Recruitment and Retention Conference.
That's which I know is always a very slow time of the year for you. I know you don't have a lot going on during that time.
Not at all. Not at all. No, my husband jokes that it's the 6 months out of the year where you're extra special. Like,
extra special.
I'm always extra, a little extra.
I would argue that you're always extra special. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just a little more special than others.
Yeah. But we open registration. We have, listen, y'all go check it out, annualrrconference.com. But we have some amazing keynotes. I would dare say 2 of the best keynotes we've ever had. I mean, they're going to be great. It's Chris Tuff and Peter Sheehan. I'm not exactly sure how you say his last name, but we were blown away by them when we talked to them and just what they're putting together for us for trucking and really tying into recruiting and retention for drivers. It's going to be really good.
Maybe we can sneak one of them on an episode, maybe either before the R&R. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Matter of fact, we'll try to do that. So what about you? Like, here we go. Like we're moving in. We got Halloween coming up.
Yeah. So actually my wife and I just got back from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We spent,
nice.
So our anniversary was back in March. She's put up with me for over 20 years now.
Wow.
We decided a couple of summers ago, after my son graduated high school, I told him I would take him on a trip and kind of gave him the choice, do you want to do, kind of deserts and canyons, or do you want to do mountains? And so he chose mountains. And so we spent some time kind of traveling across. We started in South Dakota and we ended up in Wyoming, and we were going to do Yellowstone, and they closed Yellowstone because of weather while we were there. So we hung out in Jackson Hole and spent some time in the Grand Tetons. And the whole time I was there, I was like, I've got to bring my wife back. So we set aside some time and we celebrated our anniversary a little bit late this year, and spent a few days out in Wyoming, and just absolutely the most beautiful place that I've been. I used to be, and I still am to some degree, a beach guy, but I have fallen in love with the mountains, and so we spent a few days out there, and now just getting ready for Halloween.
Listen, you know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to put off buying the candy because if I buy it now, it's a done deal. Like we'll just eat it all. They don't have to go back. So I try to wait till the night before. Do you have a favorite Halloween candy, Scott?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, look at me, all fat guys love candy.
Whatever.
Right. My favorite is probably, so I've got probably a list of 3 or 4, but my favorite is I'm a Snickers guy. I just think it's kind of the perfect candy. Right. And then probably a really close second would be, Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah.
That you can't go wrong with Reese's. I actually love their special holiday versions of the Reese's, like the pumpkins, and then, on Valentine's Day, they do hearts and they do the Christmas trees. I don't know if it's just because there's more peanut butter or what, but I love Reese's peanut butter cups. And then probably 3 or 4, you could interchange would be a Kit Kat bar or a Twix. Love those.
We're scarily close to the same. I mean, the leader of the pack is always a Reese's cup to me. Not Reese's Pieces. That's rookie. That's Halloween rookie candy. The Reese's cup is the OG, in my opinion, of Halloween candy. But listen, let me throw this out there. Don't be putting any dots in my kids' Halloween thing, which I probably have one more year of trick-or-treating. Just so you know, Stella's 13. I'm like, hey, do you want to go trick-or-treating? She's like, eh. I'm like, I think you should go one more year. Because I'm thinking.
For candy.
For the candy.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they go to bed, we just go through the candy and pick out all the good stuff and hide it. What parent doesn't do that?
my big thing, and anybody that's listening, I may offend somebody here, but don't be the person in the neighborhood that hands out fruit. Don't
Don't
be that
do
person that
that.
hands out apples.
Even like Quest, like little healthy snacks. Like this is the time for everybody's sugar to go through the roof. Like let's just call it what it
So
is.
do people do that? I mean, like when I was a kid, yeah. I mean, there was like, there was always that one person that handed out, fruit. But are we really at the point where we're handling, protein bars?
Yeah, the past 2 years we've gotten some nonsense. We've gotten some straight up. If somebody might not be allergic to it, don't put it in there. Like I need a good, like you said, a Snickers bar with a peanut in it. I'm just kidding. No, but honestly, like we you should see the stuff they get. Sometimes now it's not even like an actual food. It's like, you know, brochure on something, or, random stuff.
When that happens, you mark those houses and you never, ever return them.
Never. But
Yeah.
I will say we just moved, we moved, and listen, this neighborhood we moved to is they're legit Halloweeners. Okay. Be ready. Cause I've heard about this. I've not lived in this neighborhood, but I do. And so we have to up our game. Like my husband's like, I'm sorry, but are we going to have a ghost the size of Texas in the front yard? Like, and I'm like, I'm not really ready to do just yet. And he's like, well, we got to get our Halloween game on because these people, like, they do not play. They ride around. This is so Arkansas, but they have trucks and trailers with hay bales in them, and they drive their kids around the neighborhood in it like it's a parade, like legit. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that when my son was younger. I've unfortunately turned into maybe the grumpy old man that yells at people to get off of his lawn. But I have an excuse. So we have a dog at home that is severely epileptic, and so we tried to keep him as calm as possible because it's not fun when we have those moments. And so literally the last probably 2 or 3 Halloweens, it looks, I mean, it's like pitch dark at our house. We like hide so people don't ring the doorbell and freak him out. And I've gotten to where I unfortunately have to put a note on our door that says, we love Halloween, but not right now. So please don't ring the doorbell. So unfortunately we haven't been giving out candy, but the key there is even though we haven't been handing it out, I still go and buy it because I want to eat it. So yeah. I still buy it.
Listen, this is all I'm going to say, and then we can carry on because I know we have important things to get to. But if you are into Halloween, I will tell you there might not be a better company that does Halloween than Conversion Interactive Agency. So check out our social feed on Halloween because our people do not play around. And I know because we're in the same building. You guys are on a different floor than we are. But listen, I've never seen... Like, listen, we were Barbie before Barbie was Barbie, okay? Like 2 years ago, someone showed up in the Barbie box. Like, true story. Like, we don't play around on Halloween. It is the best. So, yeah, our folks, they go all out dressing up. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, so we're, I guess, maybe a little bit more of a stick in the mud, but we will have some candy down here. I can assure you, but nobody's going to be dressing up, but anyways, well, speaking of fun, speaking of things going on, we've got a great guest with us today. So why don't we get to that? Well, today, Priscilla, we have a fantastic guest joining us, and we're excited to have a true trucking industry insider with us. So hailing all the way from the great city of Nashville and the great state of Tennessee, our guest has been rolling down the highways of the industry since 2004, wearing many, many hats along the way. So from successful years in truck sales to a stint in manufacturing, he's really seen it all. Currently, he's the host of Road Dog Live on SiriusXM Radio, where he brings together the trucking community to discuss important issues that impact them the most and really important issues like their favorite chicken fried steak. So please welcome to the show, KC Phillips. KC, it's great to have you on, man.
Scott, hey, it's great to be here. Priscilla, great to see you again.
I know.
Since the recruitment or retention event last, was that in February, March?
Yes,
maybe?
Always in February, always in Nashville. Scott and I just talked about it a minute ago. It's coming up again in February. We just opened registration. So yes, we hope to see you there. I'm sure you'll be there because Sirius is already a sponsor, so that's fun.
Yes, I'll definitely be there. Great to talk with you guys.
Yes, we are excited. Now, we're real serious on the show, Casey. I know you probably thought that when we got you scheduled, but we always start every episode and every interview with what we call the first 5 serious questions that seriously do not matter. So we're going to dive into that real quick.
Okay.
Okay, so question number 1 is, in your opinion, maybe we should ask chicken fried steak, Scott, but in your opinion, Casey, what is the best sandwich?
Reuben.
Oh, look, like out the gate, like just Reuben. I like a Reuben.
How is it that you can combine individually terrible foods and make it into a wonderful sandwich? Rye bread. I mean, who likes rye bread?
True.
Sauerkraut. But when you put them all together, corned beef, Swiss cheese, rye, Thousand Island dressing, it's a delectable sandwich.
That's actually a good point. I never thought of that. Now, you take it with is it called the sauerkraut? Is that what you called it?
Yes.
Yes.
Sauerkraut.
So you eat it with that on there. I guess it's not a Reuben if it's not. That's what I'm just not sure about. I'm not sure about that, but
yeah, Reuben is one of my go-tos. If I go to a deli, we went to New York one year to broadcast from the SiriusXM studios there, and we went downtown in Manhattan, and we went to the Majestic, and they are known for their Reuben sandwiches, and I was happy with it until I got the bill, because 4 sandwiches, $85.
okay. Hey, was it worth it? Was it that good?
No, I'm a Midwesterner, and it's all about value for me.
Well, I don't want to. I know we're going to jump to the next question, but I feel like we need to find out where do drivers think the best chicken fried steak is? Because I know you talk about that on your show. I mean, what's like the overwhelming favorite? Would you say?
Oh goodness, it can't be Cracker Barrel.
No,
Because there's no truck parking. I don't know the answer to that. I will
does
ask
the
it.
Iron Skillet have chicken fried steak?
They probably would say Iron Skillet, yes.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for content, Priscilla, and so this is actually going to be a show topic. So thank you.
I'm happy to be on and lead the way with you because Lord knows I know how to talk about food. No, I'm kidding. Okay. No, that's fun. All right, cool.
All right. So second question here. What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, goodness. Well, I was a big fan of the movie Papillon, which was the Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman version of Papillon, which I don't know if you know that story, but it's about 2 guys that get thrown into a French prison in French Guiana, and it's their story of struggle and countless escapes. And
Oh, wow.
it's a wonderful story. They have actually redone that movie in the past 10 years. And that's kind of an odd one. My wife and I were sharing these intimate details whenever we were first courting one another, and she had never heard of Papillon. So we made a date night of it, and she still doesn't like that movie.
I had not heard of that either, and it's, I think Priscilla would agree, it's far more sophisticated than the answer that I gave on our last episode, where I told her my favorite 2 movies were a choice either between Dumb and Dumber or The Three Amigos, and they laughed me off the show because of that, and I'm like, they're classics.
Yeah.
I'm still not okay after that. Like literally, I'm not. Okay, let's see. Number 3 of the first 5 is, what is the most used app on your phone?
Chess.com.
Chess.com.
Yeah, the chess app. I probably play 10 to 15 games of chess a day.
Wow.
In my free time, but they're timed games, so they don't take a long time, and I lose far more than I win, if that makes it.
Really?
So did you watch Queen's Gambit?
Oh, several times, yes.
Loved it.
Oh, fantastic show.
I actually, there's a podcast that I watch. It's called Chess Network, and they broke down all of those games in that series and showed the moves that made sense and the moves that didn't make sense. But that show was a very well done show. I love that Queen's Gambit or miniseries, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm learning some things about KC that I did not know by the first
that's
five,
great.
for sure.
Hey, I'll bring a chessboard to the R&R convention if you want. We'll go a couple of games. How about it?
Yeah, well, can we film that? Because I want to see Priscilla playing chess.
Listen, you know darn well Priscilla is no good at chess. Let's be real. Like, I might have a good outfit to wear to the chess game. I could help with that maybe, but not playing the game. No, I don't.
You're still the queen, Priscilla.
Oh, looky there.
Oh,
See,
well, there you
I love
go.
KC. I love it.
She's going to want to end the interview right now with that.
Yes.
All right, so KC, what is a talent that you have that only those close to you know about?
How close?
As close as you want it to be.
It's a clean show, KC. We are labeled clean. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we can't put the little E next to the download button here.
Well, it may not be common knowledge that I'm a professional fine artist. I've sold a lot of oil paintings. I also am a professional singer. I've been paid to sing at certain venues.
Really?
So I've done a lot of different things in life. I was a sculpture major in college. So I designed furniture for a juvenile furniture manufacturer for a few years. I've worked as a graphic artist. I've done a lot of things in the visual arts. So I kind of have a breadth of experiences in a lot of different hands-on type of visual art and performance venues, but it's just really been academic and hobby more than anything else. My true love is working in the trucking industry.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I had no idea. That is great.
Listen, so Scott shared with us a few episodes ago that you can sing too, Scott, right? Like, I know your wife can.
Yes, my wife can. She did off Broadway, but we didn't share that on an episode. We shared that when we were having one of our production meetings. So now that can has been opened, so here's what I would tell you about my singing abilities. Nobody's going to pay me, and if I was in a choir, I can hold a tune and I can sing some harmony, but you will not be hearing me sing any kind of solos.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't want it. I was just a choir member in high school, right? Our high school curriculum made us take a fine art, and so I really enjoyed singing, and so that led to me participating as a volunteer in my church choir, and from there, people have asked me to sing at funerals. Never a wedding, though. I've been the funeral singer, so maybe that's appropriate. I don't know. I'm singing to send people to their grave.
Oh, goodness. I love it. Okay, one last question for the first five. If you weren't doing what you're doing today in your career, what would you hope to be doing?
Oh, goodness. I would love to be sitting on the couch drinking a beer.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, I like downtime. I work with SiriusXM for 3 hours a day, and that has led to having a lot of spare time. And so I also do run a small handyman construction business on the side. And I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but Nashville has been experiencing such a tremendous rate of growth these days that I am typically slammed. When we talked earlier this week, I was actually working on a project for a homeowner here in Nashville, doing some wood repairs, caulking, just all kinds of little home maintenance projects. And it's a second full-time job. So I probably, if I wasn't doing radio full-time, I would investigate expanding that and maybe growing that as a business.
Very cool.
I have to say, this has been the most fascinating, hands down, first five that we've done yet.
100%.
I've learned so much.
All right.
And those have been fantastic answers.
Are we done now? Is that?
That's it for the first five, man. And you 100% nailed it. I got to tell you.
Yes. I learned more about you in those 5 questions. Like, there you go. So Now we will kind of jump into the more serious questions, if you will, that I know a lot of our listeners and viewers really want to hear from you on, Casey. So, as a talk show host on Road Dog Trucking Radio, you've interacted with countless truckers, right? So, what are some of today's common challenges that the drivers are facing in their career today? And how do you think companies, carriers that they work for, could address these just when it comes to recruiting and retention for drivers?
Okay, common challenges. Common challenges in the trucking community. Well, that's a broad topic, because I do talk to a lot of people who drive, and I have spoken with many people in the world of management as well. And the individual trucker brings to the job their specific expectation of what the trucking career is going to provide them. And I've always said that one of the beauties of our industry is that you can make the trucking career whatever you want it to be, or whatever you need it to be. And that said, everyone in our industry would probably answer that question differently about their own specific challenges. But since I do get a chance to talk to a lot of drivers, you start to see some trends with the challenges. And I would break it down, I guess, into two categories. The categories being what a carrier can address directly, and then challenges that the driver has to face on their own, like just basically from life on the road. So carrier specific challenges, trucking companies probably should look to address some flexibility, or maybe add some flexibility into their policies as one approach to driver satisfaction. Since everybody brings their own needs into the trucking career, I think that there are some truckers that want more home time, for instance, or maybe they need a specific income level. They might want to have a guaranteed pay structure instead of getting paid hub miles. You might even have a trucker that wants to, I don't know, live in the truck. So depending on what the individual challenge that the driver brings to the relationship, carriers may benefit from taking a personalized approach to each driver. Basically, find out what's important to that team member, work to ensure that they're happy with their deal. And it could be simple or it could be complex. It could be a matter of giving somebody the option to switch from one segment of the company to another based on what different opportunities exist at the carrier. Or it could be something as simple as making sure they got a new mattress in the truck whenever they swap trucks. So I think the bottom line would be building relationships with the drivers to find out what they would need to be happy. And that would probably go a long way in retaining that person if they feel that they're just being heard and that their opinions matter. Um, as far as challenges that drivers would have to face alone during their time on the road, there's a lot of commonality with what we talk about on Road Dog Live. Parking availability, detention time is always a big one. Forced dispatch and driver coercion still comes up, even though the FMCSA has come up with rules to help address those concerns. You have maintenance downtime that is typically one of the top hitters. Home time comes up a lot. So there are some of those that carriers just can not really control in the driver's world, but they can control some of these with how they deal with their customers. For instance, if a shipper has long load times, or if there's extended dwell times at a carrier, then maybe a driver gets held out and they have to sacrifice some opportunity for income because they're waiting so long to get loaded or unloaded. So maybe the carrier will go in and negotiate with that shipper a consignee to shorten those times. Or maybe just change their pay policy so you can reimburse a driver for the time where they lost opportunity to get paid because they're paid by the mile. There are lots of different ways that through policy flexibility that carriers can help address the needs and the common challenges that a lot of drivers face. And, you're gaining trust if you're dealing with those, and you're improving your chance for a happy and productive employee. And many times a shipper would respect the fact that you're looking out for the driver, because if you're looking out for the driver, you're showing that you have value in the relationship with the shipper, because what do we get paid to do? We get paid to move freight. We need to deliver it on time. So that is an investment not only in the driver, but it's an investment in the relationship with the shipper.
Yep. You said so many good things there, and a lot of the data that we've collected here at PDA, reflects a lot of those things, particularly, as it relates to equipment, home time. So real quick when you mention the home time, is the feedback that you get from drivers, is it what the home time policy is, or is it more that, get me home when you tell me you'll get me home?
When I say home time, I think it's a combination of both, Scott. I do feel as if many professional operators want to be truly OTR. They want to go out and they want to spend some time on the road. But there is a segment of the driving population that has a lot of responsibility at home. And so they need to have home time built into their weekly or even daily schedule. So with regard to your question, I think it truly does depend on what the need of that driver is. It could be the policy. It could be they just want dispatch or the driver manager to work with them when they say, hey, Janie's got a dance recital and I need to be home on Saturday, and it's done. There's no questions asked. The carrier works to ensure their home time is what they need it to be.
Yeah. So you touched on a lot of great things in your time in talking with drivers. Is there any kind of a memorable story or anecdote that maybe highlights how a carrier or an organization has impacted driver satisfaction in a meaningful way? Something maybe that a carrier's done to help out a driver to kind of help that satisfaction level?
Boy, that's a great question. One story I remember, this is a pretty amazing example of a carrier that was looking out for one of their own. I'm not sure if you have ever heard a listener called Buzzard. Buzzard has been a caller for a lot of years. He started calling the show early on, maybe in the 2012, 2014 timeframe. And so over the years, I became pretty good friends with Buzzard because he would call in a lot. And with the podcast, it's the same. You start to build a family around you based on this industry being so familiar, and you start to see a lot of the same people, just like we all got to know each other. I get to know a lot of people from all over the country because they connect with me on the phone lines. So anyway, Buzzard had recently gone through a pretty tough time. There was some flooding in his hometown, and his family lost everything. His house was flooded. It was a total loss. So he and his family decided that it was time to move on. And I think that they moved to Arizona. It's a little drier in Arizona, right?
A little bit.
So he and his family decided to not ever have to worry about getting flooded again. And they were moving to Arizona. And all the while this was going on, and he was dealing with this tremendous life challenge, he kept driving. He kept the wheels on his rig running. He kept showing up every day, running freight, doing the hard job. And so he called me one day and told me that he was a little anxious. He was upset because he had gotten a call from the home company or from the home office. And they let him know that they were going to route him through the terminal, the home terminal. And when he got there, he needed to check in with the office. And he was fearing that because typically when you get that call, it's not going to be a good call. Whenever a driver hears, hey, we're routing you through the home terminal, you need to come talk to us when you get here. So he took his dispatch, he picked up the load, he carried it back to the home terminal, and he checked in to take his medicine. And when he got there, it turns out that the company had heard the story of his hardship, and they had passed the hat around, and the entire company had raised $11,000 from donations to help with the disaster relief. And so they handed him a check on the spot. So imagine Buzzard when he's going in there thinking he's getting an ass chewing, and all of a sudden they hand him $11,000. That's a very memorable story. And you know what? It was one time that Buzzard was speechless. And Scott, as much as I do, the drivers, they don't have a lot of speechless moments, right?
That is correct.
Buzzard was speechless, and I think he may have even teared up, but don't tell anybody because he can cut you.
I love it. I love it. I want to meet Buzzard. That he sounds like a character. I love that.
He's an old guy. I don't think that he's driving anymore. I know he retired. I think they got him doing maybe some local work, but he doesn't have a SiriusXM Radio anymore, so I don't hear from him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a great story. I feel like I need to meet Buzzard. You know, he sounds like a fun character. Okay, so kind of switching gears a little bit. I know that you were the former treasurer of the Maintenance Council at the Tennessee Trucking Association, and a lot of the data that Scott and PDA and his team really go through when it comes to retention really focuses on equipment, because equipment is such a big deal when it comes to that. And so how do you think that maintenance practices really influence driver retention, and what advice would you have for companies like looking to improve in that area?
Boy, I tell you, I don't know where you're getting your intel, but Maintenance Council was a lifetime ago. This is crazy.
Oh, really? When was it?
Well, I think it was back in around 2008, 2009.
Okay, listen, we can do some digging around here when it comes to our guests.
So we're going to start bringing out former girlfriends here in a second, man.
Yeah, the girlfriend list is very short, so I think I'm safe there. I will say that I did serve as the treasurer of the Maintenance Council for the Tennessee Trucking Association. And at the time, I think I was about 2 months in, and I switched jobs and went to work for a local truckload carrier, and they were not a TTA member. So I did have to relinquish my my treasury responsibility. And I did have to exit the Maintenance Council, but I did spend a few years as part of the council. And if anybody's not aware of what the Maintenance Council does, typically a trucking association in every state has a council that consists of fleet maintenance professionals. They also have representatives of manufacturers of trucking equipment. I was a member of the local Volvo dealership, and so I came in as much as a networking opportunity as anything else. But I did meet a lot of great people that engaged in truck maintenance, and it becomes very apparent really fast that these people really do care about the equipment. You also do meet a lot of law enforcement personnel, and so that's always good when you need to get out of a ticket, right, Scott?
Absolutely.
I think that the maintenance department is one of the most important departments in every carrier. A company's approach to well-maintained vehicles is really the easiest way to show a driver how important they are to the company. And I think that retention piece is built right in with truck maintenance. Think about it. If you hire someone to move freight and you tell them that you're going to pay them by the mile, and then you put them in a truck with $1.2 million on it and just say, hey, good luck. Well, you know, they're not going to survive. You're making a statement that their success is secondary to you saving on a little maintenance expense. And so you not only risk losing a driver, but you risk losing a relationship with your customer when freight is coupled to a truck that's on the side of the road all the time. So I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of carriers over the years, and there's a spectrum. The trucking community all approaches as maintenance in different ways. And there's a fleet right here in Nashville. I'm not going to say any names, but there's a fleet here that lets their trucks go 2 years without a wet service. That means 2 years without an oil change. And that is a losing bet. But that is the approach that carrier decided they want to take, because they lease their vehicles for 24 months. They don't do any maintenance on them, and they want to keep their maintenance costs low. So that is the extreme end of one side of the spectrum. And the opposite end of that, you have carriers, and many of the carriers in Middle Tennessee have detailed scheduled maintenances. They have tire rotation programs. They provide their drivers truck wash bays at their terminals. They reward drivers for clean trucks. And I can talk about countless companies that do maintain their vehicles this way. And they are accomplishing a couple of goals. Number one, they're showing the community around the trucks that they take pride in the industry. They take pride in their equipment. And also, they are asking the drivers to take some piece of ownership in that maintenance, because the driver is the one that actually has to take time out of their schedule to get it in for maintenance. They're the one that has to take care of the interior maintenance of the vehicle and pulling it through the blue beacon to get a truck wash whenever they need to get some of the dust and dirt sprayed off the vehicle. So bottom line is, I think that a well-maintained truck looks good on the road. You're going to build pride in the trucking community. You're going to keep your driver happy because you maximize their uptime, and you keep the customer happy because you're delivering freight when you say you will. Bottom line.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, and we've seen from our data that the one thing about equipment issues that's really different than any other issue that we work with drivers on is that equipment issues usually cascade into another problem. And so most of the time we see that as missed home time, or even more importantly right now, is compensation. So the things that we're talking to companies about all the time is, don't let this week's equipment problem become next week's compensation problem.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're spot on on that with maintenance and equipment. So a lot of what we've talked about, whether it's maintenance or whether it's how we treat drivers, really kind of comes back a lot of times to company culture. So in your time as host at Sirius, what insights have you gained maybe from some of your discussions with truckers regarding the importance of company culture to them?
Oh goodness, man, this is a tough one. Company culture. Well, number one, I'm a big fan of the idea of companies having culture. Scott and Priscilla, we all exist in a pretty precarious place where we're somewhere in the middle of this industry. We're not a carrier, we're not a driver, but we see both sides of that, and we're hanging out between the two sides of a carrier. So we all get insights on the industry, and there's truly a dichotomy that exists between drivers and what their perception of a company culture may be, and the management team and what their idea of company culture means. So, to the question of the importance of company culture, I do think that all trucking carriers have an opportunity to benefit from trying to develop some cultural aspect to their business. I mentioned it earlier. I think that we become part of a family in trucking, and you can make that a part of how you run your business. And I think that if you do make it feel like a family, if you focus on developing a company culture, you're going to have more loyalty. You're going to have more pride, and that may benefit your retention percentage. There may be people that choose to stay with you just because, they might be getting better pay somewhere else, but it feels like family here. I really like the culture that I'm in. So there are different levels of company culture. I think at the very minimum, companies should work to develop a culture of safety. There was a recent court case, I think it was down in Texas, where there was a carrier that lost a decision in civil court, and it was a huge, millions and millions of dollars, because the court found that the company did not have a culture of safety in place. And so it cost them big dollars because they did not focus on having that company culture. And you might remember that case. So companies at the very minimum have to have a culture of safety, but then there are also other ways that you can approach a company culture. I was recently at Walmart Trucking, and the team members there all wear uniforms. And every time you go to a Walmart facility, DC, or their corporate offices, they're all wearing their white shirts or their blue shirts, depending on what their role is. And I just love seeing the Walmart uniforms. They take pride in putting that on. They have patches with different levels of success in the company. There's another event that I attended recently out in Nevada with Landstar. Landstar has, they don't call their drivers or their owner operators drivers or owner operators. They host a BCO appreciation events. Now, BCO stands for Business Capacity Owner. They don't call their drivers drivers. They don't call their owners owners. They call all of them business capacity owners because that's exactly what they do. But they do not approach it like every other trucking company approaches. And so both of these are examples of companies I think that are working to approach the industry and the retention issue through the idea of through distinction. They're making a distinction on what their employees are, and it's what it is about the company that distinguishes them from every other trucker and every other trucking company. So I think that if you can build a distinction in your carrier, your company, you're going to be starting to build a culture. And if you start to build a culture, I think that you're going to get buy-in from drivers. And that would be a good way to start with the better retention piece.
I think that is so true, Casey. And I think one of the things that we run into a lot when it comes to company culture and retention is we kind of challenge carriers and we'll say, you know, who owns retention or who owns company culture at your carrier? And a lot of times they're like, everybody does. And if everybody does, then that kind of means nobody does, just because like someone's got to own it and be able to really lead it and, you know, all the things. And so that's good. That's good insight there. Okay. So one last question for you. Listen, this is kind of just Priscilla's, you know, wanting to know, but I love to hear like when a driver has a hot take or like a spicy take on something and they get worked up. Like I like to hear like what are those latest things that drivers really have hot takes about. So what are a couple of topics that drivers have definite opinions on today when you talk to them on air?
Well, how much time you got? The beauty of what my show is all about is that I give truckers an opportunity to express their opinion on whatever it is. Every other show on the platform, well, not on the platform, but on our channel specifically, is more news driven, where we do a lot of opinion stuff. And so that is both a blessing and a curse. The blessing is I don't have to do as much talking as a lot of the other people do because I give plenty of leash out to the folks who are calling in and let them go. The curse is that I have to hear the same bitching and moaning on lots of different topics, but it's okay because that means that they care about it and it's important to them. And as far as the hottest takes right now, you got to have speed limiters at the top of the list. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is plowing ahead. They're going to ramrod this thing in. We don't know yet what that number is going to be. Is it going to be 68? Is it going to be 65? Is it going to be 61? Whatever. So the reason that they are so incensed about it is because it directly challenges their ability to manage the truck themselves, number one. Number two, it's widely known that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has published that the number one vehicle accident is the rear end collision where a light duty vehicle rear ends a slower moving heavy truck. So speed differential is a big problem on our roadways today. That's why we have the ICC bumper. That's why we don't want truckers hanging out in the hammer lane. We need them just to fall in line in the granny lane and let everybody else pass by. So we have a real problem with this idea of speed limiters because we are now slowing every truck down so that hand that wants to run 72 miles an hour will only be able to run 65. You're going to have a lot more road rage incidents. You're going to have a lot more rear end collisions. And it's going to provide a much more dangerous environment for not only truckers, but for other motorists on the roadways. That's probably the most pressing hot take issue that we have today. The other one, which is probably a good decade, maybe 20 years down the road from now, is the idea that trucks will ever be able to drive themselves. Recently, you had Assembly Bill 316 in the California Senate pass with a near majority, 36-2 votes, I think, stating that a human had to be in the cab with a truck that is fully autonomous. The governor has vetoed that bill, saying that they have enough policy in place to keep a good eye on what's going on with these vehicles. And there is a huge public outcry in the trucking community about that, because not only does it compromise the ability of truckers in California to the tune of 100 to 200,000 employed drivers, but also it signals that we don't trust that you can do the work. We would rather trust an electronic sensor to tell an 80,000 pound vehicle when it needs to brake. We have anecdotal evidence every time we talk about autonomous vehicles that we have false positives everywhere on our roadways today. There are many vehicles out on the road that are being tested today that are trying to utilize not just driver assist mitigation technology, but also full autonomy. And there are many times when this system will cause a hard braking event because it saw a shadow or because there was a glare off of a wet roadway. There are so many questions that need to be answered by the industry about AV, autonomous vehicles. And to see that it's moving at the accelerated pace we see today, it's truly troubling for every trucker, and it should be troubling for every motorist on the roadway today.
Don't you think that insurance companies are going to have something to say about that?
Amen. Yeah. That's why I said, how much time you got? Because shoot,
Yeah.
you could also talk about the chance that there will be hacking happening. Anything that's connected is liable to be hacked. And so what happens with cargo theft numbers? What happens whenever there is someone who just wants to steal a truck and take off with it, turn it into a bomb? Who knows what they want to do? But it's scary. We have such an over-reliance on technology today, and truckers see it. And I'm sure you guys hear it too.
Yeah, well, man, listen, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. Your insight has been fantastic. As I mentioned, your answers to the first five were extremely entertaining. But this has been a great conversation, man, and we hope you'll give us some time maybe later down the road. We can touch on some of these topics again, because I think what you had to say today was extremely informative, and I think will be really, really great for our listeners and the folks that are watching. So we really appreciate you joining us today. Appreciate your time, and I guess we'll see you down the road, maybe at the R&R convention in February.
All right, Scott, Priscilla, thank you so much. Hey, tune in to Road Dog Live Monday through Friday, SiriusXM 146.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Everybody tune in, because you get to hear what drivers think. That's why I love listening to your show. It's so fun. But thanks, KC. It's been so fun. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, such a great episode there with KC. Really appreciate his time and his feedback there. So, as always, we're at that point in the resource where we want to share and provide you with some resources and information that has recently caught our eye, and to help you recruit smarter and retain better. So, Priscilla, what do you got for us today?
Yes, so I've been thinking a lot about this because, we just wrapped up our fall driver survey that's actually releasing very, very soon in the next couple of days here. And then we also have our Q3 data download that's releasing as well. So we've just been kind of going back, looking at data we've had in the past, how it relates to what we've gotten recently. And I know that on the new driver survey that we had, that this came up, and I went back and I thought, I know that we asked about this. And so on our last driver survey that we did in the spring, we asked drivers, other than pay and home time, what information is the most relevant to you in a job description, like a driver job description? Because, pay and home time are kind of like, those are the ones that everybody knows are super important. And listen, health benefits showed up at 55%. So operating area was number one at 60.9%, but then health benefits were 55%. Scott, I know with the new data that we were just pushing out that benefits show up again. And so
They do.
I know that this seems like kind of a duh, like, hello, we know benefits are important. But a lot of times people focus on equipment and home time and pay. And I really think that benefits are super tied to compensation. And so, and especially when you think about one of the other things that we're really seeing a lot in our data and in how we're getting our leads is how involved the spouse is in the decision. And when you think about benefits, like that's one of the first things the spouse, almost even before how often are you going to be home, what are you going to get paid? Like, how are we going to take care of our family from a health benefit standpoint? And so I just think it's important to remember that, and to remember to make sure it's up on the priority scale. It's not sign-on bonus. It's not pet policy. You know, I'm not saying those things may or may not be important to drivers, but the health benefits are. And so highlighting those and thinking of unique ways to highlight those, and let your drivers tell the story about, you know, if you have a great benefits package, let your drivers tell that story in your social media and all, you know, all the different ways that you tell your employer brand story. And so I just thought that was a good one to remind ourselves of, knowing that we're about to have that new data come out. I'm sure we'll talk about that in future episodes, but yeah, that's what I have for today.
You're exactly right. I think there's some surprising data points that, you know, and like you said, we're going to spend a whole episode kind of unveiling the driver survey results. And, you know, another thing that kind of popped up in there is actually, you know, drivers are thinking about retirement and planning for retirement, I think, more than we think they might be. And those are, you know, what you mentioned in that were two things that kind of popped out to me, and I can't wait to spend some time on that. So my data point this month is actually probably a little bit different than what I've done in the past. And I had a conversation with a customer earlier this week that really kind of pointed this out. And we work with the retention department for obvious reasons. And he asked me to speak to the entire executive team because a lot of times when they share our data with the executive team kind of feels like, okay, we're just pointing fingers. And so they're like, you know, will you meet with the executive team? Will you go over the data? Because we think it's really important for our team to hear from a third party about what our data says. Because, you know, yes, we're the retention department, but in reality, there's a lot of people that are responsible for retention. And so I got to looking at that and really looking at our Q2 data and the Q3 data that's getting ready to come out. You probably get a little tidbit here before we release it. But one of the things we always look at are what are the top 10 reasons why drivers are leaving voluntarily a company. And there's a lot of issues that pop up, and I think it really shows how important the different departments of a trucking company are to retaining drivers. Because, you know, we talk about equipment a lot. KC talked about equipment a lot, and it's really, really important. So the maintenance department, as KC even said, the maintenance department is super key to retaining a driver, because it keeps that driver rolling, it keeps that driver making money, and it also gets that driver home. But one of the other key points that we see a lot in our voluntary quit data is payroll errors. So drivers getting their checks and they're inaccurate for whatever reason. And sometimes it's the driver's fault. Sometimes they've forgotten to scan in some documents and turn those in. Sometimes they've missed payroll cutoff dates. But sometimes it's truly, hey, we messed up. So you don't think about that, because even in our data, that doesn't show up really as a top issue when we're kind of breaking down the data. But when you look at the data for drivers who are voluntarily leaving, it's pretty consistently in the top 10 as to why drivers are leaving. So now we know maintenance is important. We know payroll is important. You just mentioned how important benefits are. Mm-hmm. So we know HR is important. So there's just so many things. Communication issues are important. So yes, operations plays a role in that. And obviously recruiting plays a role in that because of what they're telling the driver that gets them in and takes that job to begin with. So I think the main thing I kind of wanted to drop today is, if you've got retention departments, yes, they're in charge of retention, but everybody's responsible for turnover. So make sure your team is working together and looking at those things, looking at those low-hanging fruits. The payroll error is one of those things that when we talk to companies, say, listen, this is a quick and easy fix. You need to know when a driver is complaining about this, because it's going to be one of two things. Either the driver messed up or we messed up. And if the driver messed up, it's an opportunity to help that driver make sure that doesn't happen again. But if we mess up, As a carrier, we fix it. And here's the thing, and I said this at the R&R conference a couple of years ago when I was doing my presentation, is if you make an error on your payroll check for that driver, don't make them wait for a week to fix it, because we've got a lot of folks that are living paycheck to paycheck. And if we're sitting in an office, we wouldn't, if our company messed up on our paycheck, we wouldn't want to wait a week. So why should we expect a driver to wait a week? So those are usually pretty easy fixes. But at the end of the day, retention, there may be somebody responsible for it. That's who we point to. That's who's going to be taking care of it. But at the end of the day, we all do have a role and play a role in retaining our drivers. And it shows up in our data that it's a responsibility across the board.
Yes, absolutely. Well, y'all keep your eye out for the Fall Driver Survey, the Q3 data download. There's lots of great data and information, trends, kind of what's going on in the driver market. So we have those things dropping. Also, don't forget to register for the Recruitment and Retention Conference. It's in February in Nashville. You can do that at annualrrconference.com. We'll be talking about all things related to driver recruiting and retention. So thanks for listening to the resource. If you had fun, be sure and give us a high five by leaving a rating or a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss an episode.
And if you have any questions or feedback for us, certainly hit us up on social media, on the Conversion social media, the PDA social media, or via email. And we'll be back on our next episode with some more fun, some data, and some information to help you in your recruiting and retention game. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.